Tonight, our main speaker is Nan. Help me welcome Nan.
Hi, I'm Nan, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm super grateful to be able to stand up here and be sober in front of you. It's a miracle. So I just like to take a minute and thank Kurt for asking me to speak tonight. I'd like to thank Emily for the 10-minute speaker. Thank you, Emily. We have a lot of similarities. I'd also like to thank everyone for showing up and being here to listen to me speak. This is how we stay sober. And I also have I was surprised that my sponsor came to support me. And I have a couple of friends here tonight, too. So I'd just like to thank everyone. And I also would like to thank two unusual things. Dr. Bob and Bill, our four founders, they made this. We're sitting here in this room today because they founded AA, this program that allows us our sobriety and gives us this gift of a way of life. I also like to thank God for doing for me what I could not do for myself. With that, mostly I just like to take a moment of silence so that I could get my breath and calm down a little bit. But I just like everybody just to find a couple things that you're grateful for today and just be in thanks for a minute. And we'll just take a moment of silence right now and do that. Thank you. So formalities. So my sobriety date is 9/1/2014. So I'm 5 years sober today. Okay, you could do the math. I'll just tell you how old I am. I'm 60, and so I started drinking when I was about 14 or 15 years old, and I drank and I used steady, without a doubt, like an alcoholic for 40 years. So I had a long history of drinking, longer than a lot of you have been alive, and I'm still up here. I'm better late than never. I'm sober today, and I'm really, really, really happy to be sober and thankful. I never thought I would be able to. So I'm called to what I've been taught through my program is that I get up here and I tell you about my experience, strength, and hope. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to change it up a little bit. We usually talk about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. But just to kind of change things up a little bit and to keep you on your toes so you can listen a little bit closer is I'm going to compare and contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take like my early childhood and I'm going to compare what it was like, and then I'm going to contrast to what it's like today. And then at the very end of doing those different stages in my development, I'm going to talk about what happened. And hopefully, if I can pull this off, we'll be spending more of our time in what happened, and I'll be able to kind of share with you the things, the tools that I learned that helped me to stay sober. So that's what I'm attempting today. So I'm going to start with my early childhood. So I lived all over the world. I was in a military family. I had a mother, a father, a sister, and a brother. My father was he was a rageaholic. So I lived in an abusive home. I was raised with mental, verbal, and emotional abuse, physical abuse, and my mom was more of an emotional wreck. She said she was nervous, and so she always had nervous breakdowns. So in that environment, what happened was, I would be beaten a lot. I would be, yelled at. I would be smashed across the face if I tried to speak. An example, a really good example that sums it all up, and I always share this, is my father's favorite way to talk to me. I will never forget this phrase. One of his often said things to me is, get your GD, good for nothing ass, off of the couch and go take out the trash. And that's how I was addressed in everyday, conversation. Oftentimes my mom would get irritated with me, have her little nervous breakdown, and I would be put in my room. And I wouldn't be allowed to be let out until my dad got home, and he would usually take his belt out. I could still hear that belt coming out of his loops, and and beat me, for whatever it is that made my mom have the nervous breakdown. So it was really dysfunctional. That doesn't make me an alcoholic. I just have to kind of tell you what it was like and what I went through. So what I got out of that from a very early age, from very young, is I was afraid. I was afraid of everything. I feared my father. I feared the beatings. I feared everything. I walked around a afraid little girl, and I wasn't really taught how to find a solution or how to cope. I couldn't communicate because I was usually just reprimanded for communicating. It was disrespectful to speak back, and so I got from a very early age I isolated. And I got this way of dealing with things where I could take myself out of my body and not be there, So I guess it was a way of escape. I was a runner. I was a great runner, and I would run from the situations, and I would run from I actually ran away from home, and so this became the pattern early on. It was to run, isolate. The feelings of what it was like is I felt guilty. I felt like a bad little girl. I felt stupid. I felt worthless. I felt fear. I felt sad. I had no confidence, no direction, a feeling of impending doom. But the worst thing I think I felt was that I was a burden to everyone around me. And that was a really horrible feeling for a little girl, to feel like, you were a bummer for everybody that you lived with. That went on for a good part of my life until I tried to kill myself. I think I was 16, and then my family had to go to family counseling, and it started to get better. What it's like now, though, today, I'm going to contrast some of those feelings. I don't feel worthless. I feel I have a purpose today. Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a purpose. My purpose is to stand up here and tell you, you can do this. If I can do this after drinking for 40 years, you can do this. There's hope. There's hope for every one of us in here. So I have a purpose today, and I'm not worthless, and I'm not stupid, and I have the confidence to stand up here in front of you and to talk and to tell you about it. Most of the time, I'm happy. I don't see anything bad in my life anymore. That is a miracle, because I got to the point later on in my addiction where I could see no good in my life whatsoever. Everything was a bummer. Everything was self-pity. I was a victim. But today I looked at this opportunity, and I didn't really feel like coming tonight. I just had my neck cut. And so I was thinking, maybe I could use the neck cut for an excuse, But this is all good. I see everything good. I see the opportunity, a way to maybe meet new people. And so I think that's really cool. I love my big book. Anybody who does not have a big book needs to get one, because I love my big book. And so I will be reading little parts and pieces that go with what I'm talking about. And I'd like to share with you from page 419. And it kind of sums up that how I've changed my way of seeing things. It's an attitude. It's like I don't look at things like, a bummer, I have to go talk. I look at things that, yay, I get to go talk. This is a cool thing. It's just a whole different way of seeing the world. So on page 419, it talks about a new pair of glasses. So talks about how, rather we change ourselves and the things that we need solutions for, and it goes on to say this: AA has given me a new pair of glasses. I can again focus on good qualities, and I can watch them grow and grow. But that's exactly what's happened to me. I see the world positive. So that's a little bit of a contrast from when I was a kid and thought it was the end of the world to today, where I have hope. I'm going to speed up to, I call it midlife. It was like beyond high school, early adulthood, and on into my almost to where right before I got sober. So basically, all through high school, I met my husband as a sophomore in high school, and we were just druggies. We just would use any kind of drug or alcohol. We drank. We were just stoners. We were one of those groupies, and so I continued. Like from the very beginning, I was an alcoholic. I did not just have my first drink. I had the whole bottle of tequila and had alcohol poisoning from the get-go, from the first day, and that's how I continued to drink. So I got married, and progressively my drinking became more and more, and through that I had 2 children. I actually managed to get a nursing degree, and my life seemed like it should be all society promised, all these external things would make me happy, but I was dying inside. I had the house, I had the good job, I had 2 children, I was married, but I was hiding bottles in the bushes around the neighborhood so that when I walked my dogs, I could take a drink at every bush. I was hiding, alcohol in the car so that I wouldn't have to get someplace where I hadn't been, I hadn't had a drink. I would drink before I drank, and then I would drink after I drank. I was in this vicious cycle. I call it the vicious cycle, the rat on the wheel. A rat will run on a wheel, and it will run until it dies because it just doesn't realize it could get off. And that was me. I was running on this wheel, and the wheel looked like this. I would wake up in the morning, hungover from last night, but I'm just going to start the cycle with the morning. I would wake up in the morning, and I would, need something to speed me up to get me going. So it would be, one of those outside issues. And that would last me for a little while, and then I'd be so amped that I'd think, oh, I got to start winding down. And that was like at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I'd be starting to drink. And then I'd go, oh, well, now it's time for sleep, and I'd be taking sleeping pills. And, I'd been drinking since probably 2, and then the sleeping pills, I'd black out every night, and then it'd start all over again. And that vicious cycle was every day for many, many years. And I just could not find a way I was that rat on the wheel, and I couldn't get off. I tried all those solutions in the big book where it says I switched from hard alcohol to wine. I switched from wine to beer. I tried drinking only on the weekends. I did all of it. Nothing worked. And so I had pretty much ruined all my relationships. It got to the point where I had left my husband. My daughters were out of the house. I had quit my jobs. We had sold our house. I had no place to live, and shit hit the fan. I could go through so many different lows that I had, but I always like to remember I think my low is one of the spiritual experiences that I had, and that low is really hard for me to talk about, but I think it's necessary because remembering that low, I never want to go back there. And so I'm just going to share this one. I guess it's a drunkalogue a little bit, but so basically this is like one of the low lows, probably the worst low, and it was like probably when I was about 50, so it was right before I got sober. And I had my daughter had gotten me a knitting class for my birthday. It was my birthday. It was August 30th. And she said, let's go learn how to knit together. Oh, yeah. I want to learn how to knit. So I'm just going to have a couple of drinks on the way to pick her up for the knitting class. So I go to BJ's. I'm supposed to meet my friends there, and nobody shows up. Oh, poor me. Nobody cares about me. Self-pity, all this. So I proceed to have a couple beers. And I get to her house, and she goes, "Oh, Mom, you're drunk." And I'm like, "I'm not drunk. No, I just had a couple beers. Probably a couple beers, a couple pills, maybe a couple shots." And she's like, "No, you're drunk." And I'm like, "I'm not." And I'm like all pissed off at her that she doesn't want to go with me because I'm drunk. So I'm like, well, F this. I'll just go do the knitting class on my own. So I get in the car. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the area, but I'm in Fullerton at this time. And I drive up many freeways to get to Santa Ana. I have no recollection of driving there. And this is like a lot of traffic and a very busy area. And I have no recollection of driving there. I couldn't find my car. And it's kind of like Emily's story, and it just sickens me, it nauseates me. I woke up in the fetal position of a back alley of a door jam, someplace around 2 in the morning in Santa Ana. It's not a great place, not a great part of town. And part of my clothes were missing, and I had bloody elbows, both knees bloody. And I woke up in this dark alley. I did not know where I was at. I did not know where my car was at. And, feeling horrible. I started just kind of wandering, and I get a phone call. My husband's looking for me. And I said, well, let me get to a street sign. And I looked at the street sign, and I said, I'm on the corner of this street. And he says, fine, I'm coming. I'll come and get you. This is a little funny part of the story. So he parked his car in a no parking zone with a dog in it, and it got towed while he was trying to come and get me. So I found that out later. But anyways, we hooked up, and I said, you know what, take me to my mom's house. I don't want to be around anyone. There's nobody home. So he drops me off at my mom's house, and I'm just like, I have given up all hope whatsoever. And I get down on my knees, and I'd been always raised religious, and I believed in God. And but I got down on my knees that night, and I said, you know what, God, I want nothing to do with you. You're everything. I've prayed and I've prayed for you to deliver me from this alcoholism. I've prayed for relief, and look at where I've come to. You are not a good God. You do not love me. You are not showing me mercy, so go away from me. I want nothing to do with you. And I look now at that experience, and I think God was always holding on to my hand. And what he had to do is he had to open his hand and let me let go so that I could feel what it felt like with no hope, no God, no direction whatsoever. I had this void in my stomach I have not been able to find words to. And I walked around, it's sort of like a zombie. I felt like a zombie. And I walked around like a zombie for like 2-3 weeks until I finally started getting myself into some AA meetings. And my story isn't perfect. I have to tell you that I had some relapse in there, but I did get into an AA meeting. And that, I do believe that to be one of my spiritual experiences, because I felt what it was like to have absolutely no hope. I wasn't really coming to grips with that I was that horrible alcoholic yet, but God was working on me, and I realized that I needed God then. So what it was like hell, pretty much. It was like hell on earth. I had this void I was walking around with. I was depressed. By this time, I think I had tried to commit suicide when I was younger, and then once more. I was, at that point, suicidal, so depressed. I was just dug into a hole. I could not see anything good. Yeah, I want to just read out of my big book again, page 151. Love my big book. There's so much to learn in this. This has given me a new way of life, so sorry, but you're going to have to bear with my... this is found on page 151, and this pretty much summarizes the contrast. Well, this is what it was like, and then I'll tell you, this is what it was like before. So this is, it's on page 151. It says... as we become subjects of King Alcohol, shivering denizens of his mad realm, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, or approval. Momentarily we did, and then would come oblivion. Then would come oblivion in the awful awakening to the face of the four hideous horsemen. Terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. Unhappy drinkers who read this will understand. That's on page 151, and that pretty much sums up what it was like. So, in comparison to what that was like, what happened? Well, in contrast, this is new to me. Today, I'm free. I don't live in that prison anymore. I don't have to worry about waking up and knowing where I'm going to get the alcohol. Is there enough hidden in the areas that I need it? You know, am I going to need something to wake up? I'm not in that prison anymore. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm not a victim of my circumstances. I'm not a victim because I was abused. I'm not a victim because my husband was controlling. I'm not a victim anymore. You know, I'm a strong person with a purpose, with a great will to live. I've been taught solutions. You know, this program has given me what I never had in my whole life of 50 years of living. You know, I know how to communicate now. You know, I'm happy. You know, I look out there, I wake up in the morning, I'm excited for life. So, you know, in comparison to living in that prison and in that hell, you know, this is what the program has given me, and this is what it's like for me now. And I have a page to describe that too. It's page 25. Love this one, because I didn't even know how to dream. I was so depressed that I didn't even know what a good life, what I should aspire to, if that makes any sense. But this kind of sums it up. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we have come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up that simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We had found much of heaven, and we had been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had never even dreamed. So that sums up for me. Okay, so I think I'm doing pretty good. I think I wanted to spend a little bit more time, but Kurt says I can talk to 8:15. So that was comparing and contrasting different stages in my life. And so what happened? The miracle happened. I'm standing up here in front of you sober, and yay! I like that. Woo! I got into this program full bore in 2014, but I had a couple of slips. I came in, I went out. So first question is, what was the difference when I came in on September 1st of 2014? And I have to tell you, it was step one for me. I hadn't been willing up to that point to admit that I was an alcoholic without any kind of reservation. You know, I always kind of thought, oh, I'm pretty much an alcoholic. Look, I blacked out. I can't remember where my car is. You know, I woke up someplace like a door jam. You know, I'm probably an alcoholic, but I didn't crash the car. But I still go to work every day. You know, I got sober for 2 weeks once. I'm probably not an alcoholic. They say you're not an alcoholic if you can quit drinking for 2 weeks. So all these things, I wasn't 100% committed to that I was an alcoholic. And in the big book, I couldn't find it, but in the big book it says, you know, that I thought that being an alcoholic was like the worst thing that could ever happen to me, like gutter, homeless, scum of the earth, to be an alcoholic. And, I think today it's the best thing that ever happened in my life. I am so grateful to be an alcoholic. But when I came to that 100%, I am an alcoholic, I cried for 6 months. I literally would wake up in the morning and start crying, I'm an alcoholic, oh, I'm scum of the earth. And I'd go to the mirror, oh, I'm an alcoholic. But I knew I was an alcoholic. And Kubler-Ross talks about the 5 stages of death and dying. I went through all those 5 stages. It was denial. Finally I came to the acceptance, I'm an alcoholic. And once I got that, once I 100% without a doubt came to the grips that I was an alcoholic, and my life, I couldn't manage my life. It was a shambles. It was obviously a shambles. I quit crying, and I came to step 2, which, I knew that if I couldn't do it, I was going to have to find a way to manage my life, right? Which brought me back to knowing I had to have a God. And step 3, I made that concrete decision. I had to learn how to do it, but I made that concrete decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God. And that's a process. I'm doing that today. It'll be for the rest of my life. I give things and take them back. I give things and take them back. But I just know that it's a much softer, easier way of life when I give them. God takes care of them. So that's kind of my how I came and I stuck. And I like to think that I'm going to continue to be here, but all any of us has is 24 hours at a time. And so I also like to mention to you, because I hadn't heard this, I haven't heard this here too much, but steps 1 through 3 is getting right with God. And I don't know if you know where to find the steps in the Big Book, but it's on page 59 of the Big Book, and it goes through our steps. So steps 1 through 3, when we work them, it's getting right with God. Steps 4 through 7, that work that we're doing, help us to get right with our own self. So it's getting right with self. Steps 8 and 9 or steps 4 through 7 is getting right with self. 8 and 9 is getting right with others. That's where we make our amends. And then steps 10, 11, and 12 is spiritual growth. That's the meditation and sharing with others. So all of those steps are necessary. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the steps, but I think what I'm going to go into, because I'm running out of time, is so that is a tool. Our steps are a tool that we need. And what I really wanted to leave you with and spend more time than the Drunkalog is, some of the tools that I used when I got sober. And like I told you, I had such bad cravings. Can you imagine drinking for 40 years and that's the only way of life you know? That's the only way of coping? I woke up and wanted a drink. I'd get in the shower and I wanted a drink. I'd have to go to work and I'd want a drink. I wanted a drink all the time. And I was a basket case. I would lock myself in. I would lock myself out. I would forget the keys. I would forget my name. It was crazy. When I got sober, I was a mess. And I was not in a recovery. I was trying to function. I had left my husband, and I had a little apartment, and thank God I didn't burn it down. What I did, these are the tools that I used, is I got a sponsor. Sponsors are necessary. We need direction when we first get into these rooms. We need to learn this program. And our sponsor is the one that's going to guide us and lead us and give us that direction. Meetings. My sponsor said 90 meetings in 90 days. And I went to 90 meetings in 90 days, but I also found myself in between those meetings. I would find myself in church. I would find myself in a friend's house. I would find myself in a morning meeting. I would not want to leave the evening meeting because I knew that if I left, I was going to drink. So I was in meetings all the time. I wasn't in a recovery, so that was sort of like my recovery home, So meetings are invaluable. My Big Book, I started reading this thing I know this big book in and out. It's highlighted. It's the dog-eared. It's marked. It became my solution to things. This works. This big book works if you work it. I mean, it's a program of action, but I had to have a willingness, so I had to kind of change my attitude about things. I had to take direction. Service work. You know, when I'd get in a funk or I'd start to get into self-pity, oh, nobody loves me. How could my daughter treat me so badly? Oh, she just doesn't know how she's hurting me. I learned that when I'd get into that self-pity or I'd go into that mode, I'd call up a person and say, you need a ride to a meeting? I'd call up a person and, say, hey, how are you doing? Let's go have some coffee. I would pick up the phone and I would do service work, and immediately I would be taken out of that self-pity. I do quiet time to this. I have a book right here. I sit down with God in the morning, and that's how I start my day, with quiet time. And I journal, which helps me to sort out my feelings. And in my journal, one of the things I do is I put every single day, I put one thing I'm thankful for and one thing that has one positive change in me. And that's helped me to just remember I'm a miracle. I mean, if you knew me before, I'm standing here like a modern-day miracle. Sticky notes to the head, sticky notes to the windows, sticky notes to the the driving wheel, the sticky notes with the little cliches. One day at a time, 24 hours. You're looking at the problem in the mirror. Was written in like chalk or a marker or something. You're looking at the problem when I would look in the mirror. I would talk to others. The other really beautiful thing that you guys have access, I had little tapes and CDs that I'd listen to speakers constantly. I was in the program because I was sure I did not want to drink. You guys have the Rarely group on YouTube. Thanks to Kurt. Everybody give a shout out to Kurt afterwards. Yep. Honesty is super important. We're as sick as our secrets. And if you can't come clean and you can't come honest with somebody, you're going to just stay sick. Honesty is really super important. So I'm running out of time. It's 8:13. I just want to finish with one more thing in the big book. It's page 267. If anybody wants any of these really great references from the big book, let me know and I can give you these afterwards. And this is to sum everything up of what I've talked about. Above all, I have gained the greatest thing accorded to any man, the love and understanding of a gracious God who has lifted me from the alcoholic scrap heap to a position of trust, where I have been able to reap the rich rewards that come from showing a little love for others and from serving them as I can. Thanks for letting me speak.